I'm going to be honest with you, it's really late at night right now. I've been sitting at my desk now, trying to write this review for Starfield and not being very successful. I think part of that is that I don't do a lot of reviews here on the channel. I tend to focus more on build videos or guides, for example. These are things that tend to be more systematic and step-by-step, and I'm going to continue to do that, by the way, for the Elder Scrolls and now for Starfield. But how do you define or even review a game as big as this, which is essentially Skyrim in space? But when Skyrim has been played for over 10 years and continues to be enjoyed and experienced, what I can tell you for sure is that as I played Starfield, I got that same feeling of adventure that I felt when I first played Skyrim, if not more. You can tell that Bethesda has really evolved and refined that magic formula for the open world RPG in the last decade or so. In other words, Starfield is actually more Skyrim than Skyrim, if that's even possible. But beyond just the systems and the dialogue and the exploration, there's something more here about Starfield, something that's hard for me to quantify, but I know it hit me right in the feels. As I played and recorded Starfield over the past 2 weeks, I was fully engaged. I laughed, I cried, and weirdly enough, I started to ponder my own place in the universe. And I know this is just a game that we're talking about, but when the subject matter of that game involves the depth of space and creation and the future of humanity itself, that's really heavy. And to Bethesda's credit, they handle this subject extremely well, and they give players the tools to handle the weight of the story for themselves in the game on their own terms. After 50 plus hours now, I have really high praise for this game. But for me, it's a 9 out of 10. And highly recommended. I'll do my best to explain why in this review, but I hope that if nothing else, this video encourages you to give the game a chance and try it for yourself, other than letting me or anyone else tell you how to think about a game that I think can't be fully understood or quantified until it's had some time to be itself, and we've had some more time to be with it. So in the intro, I talked about how Starfield's story resonated with me in some surprising ways. I did not expect to get hit with some of the gut punches this game delivers in terms of its narrative. Without spoiling anything, it can get dark at times, but there's equal parts light if you make the effort to go out and try to find it. You do have some control over the story in that regard and deciding certain outcomes, and you can make bad things happen or you can make good things happen. But again, just the nature of this game's subject matter, dealing with the future of humanity itself, gives everything a bit more weight. As an example, during the course of the game, there was something bad that happened to one of my companions. I'm not going to say who or what to avoid spoilers for you here, but this specific event was so bad that I had to literally stop, and put my controller down for a minute to really assess what just happened in the game and whether or not there was a way I could go back, maybe to an earlier game file, and somehow save this companion from what had happened. Now, it turns out there was a way, but that solution also came with its own consequences that I had to weigh in my head, and ultimately, I was willing to accept in order to achieve the outcome that I wanted. Now, for me, in most other games, I would have just powered through that entire situation and kept playing, because either the consequences would make little difference or I would have no connection really to the characters involved. But not this time, not in Starfield. When the situation happened as it did, I felt that my character made the wrong choice, and it was my duty to go back and fix it. I know that experience is not necessarily unique to Starfield as a game, and certainly some games are going to do choice and consequences better than Starfield does, but it still was refreshing to me to experience that situation in a game as massive as this, and this gives you a glimpse into why perhaps the game took so long to release. Starfield does have all these little details, and the details matter. Now, there's a lot of moments like this all across Starfield, both in the main story and side missions, which help to add to your presence, I'll say, in this universe. Starfield has plenty of moments, including comedy and drama and political intrigue, that help to push the story forward or to lighten the load. So I think Bethesda have done a good job here on balance and tone. And if you're curious, I did finish the main story for Starfield in around 30 hours of total gameplay, which felt good. It felt right to me to finish the game in that time frame. Without giving too much away, to fully understand Starfield though, you also need to understand that completing the main story is really just the start of your journey and not the end. I can also mention this because it's already been said by Pete Hines and others, but the way that Starfield lets you choose to end the game, you can actually extend the journey into New Game Plus, is truly masterful, and it's my favorite ending to any Bethesda game by far. Again, no spoilers here, but most of the other reviewers I have talked to who did finish the game enjoyed the ending and were pleasantly surprised by what they were able to do in the game afterwards. Much of the pre-release talk surrounding Starfield has centered around the concept of exploration, and for good reason. Exploration is the primary goal. It's the central gameplay loop and the narrative drive to everything you do in Starfield. I mean, just consider your primary faction in the game, Constellation, basically a group of cosmic explorers, or there's, of course, Todd Howard's claim of 1,000 planets to discover and explore. Now, I did not personally count every single planet in Starfield to confirm or deny this, but yeah, there are a lot of planets in this game. Most planets and moons, which are made of solid matter, can be landed on and explored, while gas giants obviously cannot, though you can still approach those planets in orbit, and these often include their own encounters like a space station or a pirate fleet or some interesting random encounter that shows up. Now, in terms of progression, each star system in the game has its own level, which is clearly labeled on your system's map. This starts at level 1 and goes all the way up to at least level 75, if not higher from what I saw. And for comparison, most of the main story systems that you're going to travel around are under level 30. Each system can then be viewed with a map of its corresponding planets and moons to give you an overview of what's in that system, and then each planet or moon can be separately approached in orbit and scanned and potentially landed on. Now, depending on the planet, you may have some possible destinations already visible, typically 3 or 4, but these are not the only landing locations you have available. In fact, you can land anywhere on the planet itself to begin exploring on foot. And to do this, you're going to access a topographical map, which is going to show you even more possible destinations and points of interest to discover. But as you can see, there are a lot of layers here. It is a little cumbersome, to be honest, to switch between all 4 of these different layers. I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot of clicking, a lot of pressing buttons, especially on console, to get to the specific layer that you want to go to. But I think that is a consequence of just having so much to discover and explore. And I do want to be clear, not everything you discover in Starfield is going to have the same depth of the game's main cities, like a New Atlantis, for example. But that's fine in my book. Not everything should have the same depth. I mean, it makes sense that some planets will be barren of life, but maybe have potential resources to harvest. Some other planets might be full of smaller outposts or mining depots, and some planets will be hubs of civilization. It's this difference that makes the galaxies and systems of Starfield feel more authentic. I will say too that more often than not, I was actually surprised by what I discovered even on a seemingly barren planet, as maybe one mining outpost or pirate base was there. It seemed simple on the surface, but maybe it led to a deeper underground base or set of caverns with tons of enemies and loot for me to discover. Also, most planets do have unique environmental looks and feels. I mean, at least for me so far, I've probably only visited maybe 30 or 40 planets in total. Some planets are very desolate, yes, but for the planets in that Goldilocks zone where they have a temperate climate, the wildlife in many cases is insane. From the planets that I found that did have active creatures, alien creatures, every single one of those creatures was different. I actually still remember when I discovered my first flying creature, my mouth literally dropped, and I actually tried for several minutes to boost high enough to try to ride it, but I didn't have any luck there. Also, the ways that wildlife interacts with each other, following in herds or hunting other species on the planet, it just adds to the entire experience, and it was a nice level of detail that added to my overall sense of immersion for that particular planet. So 30 hours of main story, 100 plus hours if we're talking just exploration of planets. So what else could there possibly be to do in Starfield? Well, turns out there's actually a lot more. Companions, as I previously mentioned, play a big role in Starfield, as does ship building, outpost building and management, faction missions and stories, theory crafting builds with dozens of skills across 5 skill trees. There's crafting, there's research, upgrades, and the list goes on from there. For the sake of time, I'm just going to hit the highlights for the rest of this review, some of my favorite elements that I experienced during my playthrough. For me, companions, very well done. Each companion has their own unique likes and dislikes, obviously, but also plenty of personality and backstory, so building a relationship with your companions, it doesn't feel like just checking off boxes, and it feels natural, I think. There's a lot of crewmates you can pick up along the way, but the game does have 4 primary companions, and these main ones can either become your close friend or a romantic partner if you put enough time into the conversation and you do the prerequisite backstory missions, which adds a lot more depth to each companion, and it also gets reflected in the game's ending, which is nice as well. Now, unfortunately, even though you can equip your companions with specific weapons and armor, the total amount of customization for them is on the lighter side, since your companion skills are fixed to a specific set. You can't level them or improve them in any way. Companions also have unlimited ammo and they can't die in combat, so yeah, the best reason to have them in a firefight probably is for their one-liners, which are not bad. So a little disappointing in that aspect, but the focus is definitely on dialogue. It's on building that relationship. Oh, and of course, they can carry your burdens for you.
Have something for me?
Shipbuilding in Starfield is amazing. I love it. There are dozens of upgrade options in many different categories, including weapons, shields, cargo, engines, drive, cockpit, cabin. To unlock everything, you'll need to pick up skills in the various skill trees. So this is not something that you're going to master in just a few hours. It's really a game system that you're going to build on and you're going to refine over your entire playthrough with Starfield. It just keeps going. Shipbuilding is actually very simple too in its design, with a snap to place editor that shows you how your ship stats increase or decrease in real time. And it also provides a warning indication when things go wrong, or maybe something's not connected properly on your ship, which is really good. So far in my 50 hours with Starfield, I have 3 ships right now. One, the Frontier, is my home away from home. It's comfortable, it's easy to upgrade. Next is Big Bertha, my cargo transport ship. I actually repurposed this from a dilapidated prison transport that I got for free from one of the game's faction missions. And the third ship I also got for free from a side mission, actually, that I completely forgot about. It was just, the mission was sitting in my journal in my missions list until I had already finished the game by that point. And then I was going back through and finishing things, and then was pleasantly surprised to find this mission, get an amazing ship from it, and actually a legendary spacesuit, which I wish I actually had done this a lot sooner. But I do want to say that the system of shipbuilding in Starfield is actually a really good example of how successful Starfield systems are overall in giving players options, but without forcing them to go all in on that system to basically jump in the deep end. Instead, the game's systems, and this is pretty much true for all of the systems in the game, is you can go as deep or as shallow as you want to go. And that's one of the primary reasons why I think Starfield is going to be so successful, and it's why I'm recommending it to you. I mean, on the surface, shipbuilding sounds complicated. It sounds overwhelming. I actually skipped doing it for like my first 20 hours in the game because I had seen the previews and it didn't look that interesting to me, and I just didn't want to do it. But thankfully, Starfield breaks down shipbuilding and many of the other game's systems into varying levels of complexity. For example, in the case of your ship, there is a screen just for upgrades. And this allows you to keep your current ship and its structure, but simply upgrade its existing pieces in their current position. This is very simple and it's very easy to do, and this is actually all you need to do to progress the game's story through some of the basic ship battles that you'll be required to complete. Now, for those that want more powerful options, but you don't want to spend the time building or learning the building system, you can also just straight up buy a shiny new ship that's already been built for you if you have enough credits. And of course, once you're ready to get your hands dirty, you can leave that basic upgrade screen and you move on to the full ship builder, which allows you to change and maneuver every individual component of a ship's design for complete customization. Like I said, shipbuilding, I love it. I'm going to work on my Minotaur ship next as soon as I get enough credits for that. Theorycrafting builds in Starfield is another great example of this game design philosophy that I'm really enjoying. With 5 dedicated skill trees, each 4 layers deep, customization options are robust but not overwhelming. Each skill itself also has 4 ranks in total, most providing percentage-based bonuses, but others unlocking useful new effects, Metroid style. For example, sneaking is possible in Starfield, but you don't actually get the sneak meter on your screen until you unlock rank 1 of stealth. And at rank 2 of stealth, you get an even better meter on screen that's actually more accurate and helps you sneak around with greater success. You also can't pickpocket, you can't pick locks, you can't use the boost pack, and a few other basic things until you unlock rank 1 of that corresponding skill, which I know sounds limiting just in the way I'm saying it, but it actually serves to give your early build a specific direction instead of overwhelming you with, 25 different options at once to choose from. The starting backgrounds for Starfield also help in this process. Basically, each background gives you 3 starting skills, each at rank 1, helping to give you a jump start into a particular playstyle or build, but not locking you into anything that you'll regret or not be able to use if you end up completely changing your build around in the future. Equipment in Starfield is more or less what you would expect, nothing crazy or out of the box here. Weapon selection is pretty good. There's plenty of options from pistols to rifles to shotguns, of course laser weapons, heavy weapons, melee weapons, and so on. Your armor pieces are composed of your spacesuit, which is obviously the biggest and most bulky, but gives you the most protection and is necessary for exploring most planets, particularly those with a poisonous or otherwise hazardous atmosphere. Then you've got your jetpack, which is essential for that boost ability. There's multiple types of jetpacks in the game, by the way, with varying levels of boost, so be sure to try all of those out. Then you have your helmet, which can provide even more defense, and then you have a slot for clothes, or basically like a jumpsuit. Lots of ponchos too in this game, which is interesting. I do like a good space poncho. But with that said, I was able to make a few powerful builds by the time I finished the main storyline. I was around level 30 to level 35 at that time, and I actually have a video coming out with this, so check that out right here on screen when you're ready for that. But it's around this time where the game really starts to open up in terms of buildcraft, and you begin to see what's possible. But a true final form for a Starfield build will probably take shape closer to like level 60, maybe level 70, which is where all that side content comes in. Or if you decide to go the New Game Plus route, which we mentioned earlier, this actually retains your level and all of your selected skills into the next playthrough, so you can keep working on that build if you want to. So up to this point, my review has been pretty glowing. Even Bethesda seems super confident in this release, as they gave out plentiful review codes and set the review embargo to lift early, that is a full day ahead of early release for Starfield. But this game also had 10 months of extra time in the oven, so to speak, since its delayed release last November, and that really seemed to make all the difference here. I will go out on a limb and say that Starfield is the most polished Bethesda title ever released, and for a game as big as this, that's actually worth giving them some credit for. That being said, I do have some gripes, not huge issues, but these did knock down Starfield for me, taking it out of that legendary 10 out of 10 score. Number 1 on this list is kind of funny, I think, and it's actually the interface. Yes, menus are the bane of Starfield. I talked about this earlier when we discussed exploration, but the whole planet and star system map is really just not that intuitive. Early on, I would frequently get stuck in these menus for a few seconds. I was either on the planetary map and needed to get out to the galaxy map, or vice versa, and it took 3 to 4 clicks to get through all the map layers to get where I needed to go. Also, to open the terrestrial map, you need to use your scanner first, which I guess makes sense logically because you're scanning the area for points of interest, but that's another unnecessary click in my view, and it just gets frustrating after a time. Plus, I was surprised to see that there's actually no specific maps for the major cities in the game, which are actually huge and very easy to get lost in. Make sure you use your scanner for that, by the way, if you're trying to get to the next mission objective. So there definitely is a learning curve here to Starfield, and I personally was feeling the frustration with it early on until I got used to things. Another example of menus or just user experience that could be improved in shipbuilding, overall the UI is good, which we talked about, but No joke, it took me hours to figure out that there are actually two separate menus for shipbuilding, one just for upgrading your ship and another menu for building. And I was wondering why all I could do was upgrade. I mean, obviously reading comprehension, that's my bad, but still, I think this could be a bit more intuitive. Another issue here is if you're interested in using some of the more niche combat skills, like for example, robotics or intimidation, to use those skills, you actually need to open up your scanner, which is separate from your main weapon. Then you have to target an enemy, then choose that specific action from the scanner menu. And all of this happens in real time, by the way. The game does not slow down for you, so you're just sitting there absorbing damage the entire time, trying to get that skill to go off. Another issue you'll probably get to pretty early on is inventory management, specifically sorting and categorizing things like consumables, food, and healing items. As you can see here, I have a ton of these items in my inventory, and something simple like a set of tabs across the top of this screen, separating them out between food, beverages, healing, chems, that would make this so much better. Speaking of items, my friend Skinny Cheeks pointed out to me that while there is a category for miscellaneous items you can pick up, unlike the Fallout series, you can't break these items down for any useful parts. So anything miscellaneous is kind of just wasted space, unless of course it sells for a high amount, so you'll want to check the price on those items. So these are things where, again, not huge, not deal breakers, and I think eventually mods will really just help to refine the overall experience with Starfield and its menus. I mean, I get it, it's a huge game with tons of systems and they all work. It could just be a little bit cleaner. As I said, there is a definite learning curve to getting started in Starfield, so be ready for that, be patient with it, and also look for some beginner guides here on the channel soon to help you out with that. Now, in terms of bugs, there are still some issues with dialogue, especially mouths not moving or syncing properly, NPCs talking who aren't there, or mission markers that are in the wrong location. I had that a few times. But again, these are all really minimal issues that can be fixed if they aren't fixed already with Starfield's day one patch. And in my 50 hours, I experienced 0 crashes with Starfield. 0. So whatever Microsoft has done here in their partnership with Bethesda, in the immortal words of Todd Howard, it just works. And honestly, I'm really glad. I'm glad for not just myself and for you as players, but also for Bethesda. I mean, I feel like they really needed a win here with Starfield, and I really think they delivered that win and more. At the end of the day, Starfield is more than a game. It's gonna be one of those experiences like Skyrim, which stick with us for another 10 plus years. I mean, this all started 25 years ago with the concept for Starfield, nearly 10 years of active development time to its credit. So for the most part, Starfield, it's extremely playable, it's well polished, especially considering its massive size and all the details that are a part of this game, which allow you to become completely lost in its universe for hours at a time. So if you're looking for a new escape, something to invest some time into over the next few months or even years, then I would encourage you to give it a try. Even now, I want to go back to my ship and add more upgrades and improve the design. I want to jump to more systems and planets to see what I might have missed on the surface, or just hang out in orbit and watch a few ships pass by. Starfield right now is almost perfect, and I'm sure with time it will only improve on the foundation that is already there. But that is my Starfield review. If you liked this video or found it informative, do me a favor and crush that like button. That lets YouTube know to share this videos with others who might also be looking for some Starfield content. So that is much appreciated. If you're new around here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can expect more Starfield guides and builds over the following weeks. Some of those might even be on your screen right now, so make sure to check those out next. And as always, thanks again for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.